The following video will go through ecosystem interactions. Ecosystem interactions are when organisms in a community interact with one another and the environment in many ways. Biotic interactions occurs in three main ways. Through competition, this is the interaction between two or more organisms competing for the same resources in a given habitat. Competition can occur between members of the same species. So for example, species of warblers feed on the same spruce budworms. Here is the spruce, and there are budworms, but each species feeds in different parts of the spruce tree. So like the Cape May warbler will stay kind of to the top. The bay-breasted warbler will kind of be in the middle, and the yellow-rumped warbler will be more towards the bottom. Competition can limit the size of a population. The more energy an organism spends competing, the less energy it has for growth and reproduction. As the population of a species increases, the competition for resources also increases. The other type of interaction between biotic organisms is predation. This occurs when one organism eats another organism to obtain food and energy. The organism that is consumed is called the prey. The organism that eats the prey is called the predator. The relationship between predators and their prey can influence the population of both predator and prey. If the population of a prey decreases, then the population of the predator will also decrease because of lack of food. This is referred to as bottom-up population regulation. With top-down population regulation, this is where you get fluctuations in population. So here, the example is the snowshoe hare and lynx population. Snowshoe hare population is shown in blue. The lynx population is shown in red. And as the lynx population increases, there's a lag in the increase in the numbers of the lynx. So as those populations go up, so does the lynx eventually, and then it reaches a point where the snowshoe hare population starts to decrease because there's a high number of predators, and then because there is a lack of prey, lynx populations will decrease as well. And this trend and pattern can be observed, over and over again, and fluctuates over many years. The next type of relationship is symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close interaction between two different species in which members of one species will live in, on, or near members of another species. Now, symbiosis can be broken down into three different types. There is mutualism, where both species benefit from the symbiotic partnership. So here in this example, this bird here is cleaning out the food between the crocodile's teeth. That crocodile could easily eat the bird, but the crocodile is benefiting from the bird cleaning out the food remains between its teeth. It keeps its teeth healthy, and then the bird also gets a meal as well. So both benefit from this particular relationship. And in fact, crocodiles will actually open their mouths and allow the birds to come in. They almost invite the birds in. The next type of symbiosis is commensalism. This is where one species benefits from a relationship with another species without any benefit or harm to the other species. So here we have clownfish living in an anemone. The clownfish benefit from the protection of that anemone, but the anemone does not benefit from the clownfish itself, and the clownfish don't cause any harm to the anemone. The last type is parasitism. This occurs where one species benefits at the expense of another species. Parasites will live on or inside the host species and obtain some or all of their nutrients from the host. Basically, parasites require living or using another organism to obtain the nutrients that it needs. And in return, that organism is often harmed. So this example here shows the transmission of brainworm parasites. So, for example, the worm will lay its egg in the blood vessels that cover the deer's brain. The eggs travel through the blood vessels to the lungs where they hatch. Eventually, those larval worms get excreted. The worms are consumed and live inside snails and bugs, and then the worms enter the deer body when the deer consumes plants on which the snails and slugs are attached. So when the deer eats those plants and then eats those infected snails and slugs by accident, not intentionally, new deer will get infected, and so the parasite will continue its life cycle that way. And so the parasite needs these two organisms in order to survive. Now, with characteristics of a population, populations tend to increase when the number of individuals increase faster than what is lost. You can have a type of growth referred to as exponential growth, and this occurs when organisms come into a new habitat that has lots of resources. It will then undergo exponential growth. So exponential growth is accelerated growth that produces a J-shaped curve if you plot the growth. This kind of growth does not go on for long. Supplies are limited in an ecosystem. So what that exponential growth looks like, here we have elephant population tracked over a number of years, and you can see that populations of elephants, are relatively low. Around 1960s, when they became protected, there was a sudden increase in a very big spike. So their numbers were low. There was lots of resources for them. The ecosystem could support those high numbers, and their numbers were able to grow rapidly and quickly. Now, there are limiting factors within ecosystems, and this is a factor that limits the growth, distribution, or amount of a population in an ecosystem. Abiotic limiting factors include the amount of sunlight, water, soil, air, natural disturbances such as fires and drought, and human disturbances such as logging. Biotic limiting factors include competition for resources, presence of predators, reliance on other organisms for survival, and disease. Now, within any ecosystem, for any organism and for any population, there is what's referred to as the carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is the size of the population that can be supported indefinitely by the resources of a given ecosystem. The population will reach an equilibrium, so the number of individuals does not change over time. And that is basically the carrying capacity. So if you look here at this particular chart, on the x-axis we have time, on the y-axis we have number of rabbits. There is a low number of rabbits in an ecosystem. Maybe they're new to this particular ecosystem. There is a sudden increase. We have this exponential growth. And then eventually they will reach some type of carrying capacity, or their numbers will not continue to grow because they're now kind of reaching the limits at which the ecosystem will be able to support any given number of individuals. And so this number does not fluctuate too much. It'll go up and down a little bit, but it shouldn't have any massive drops or should not climb too high. And this carrying capacity here, is basically the number of individuals that can be supported in that ecosystem. So that is the end of this video for interactions in ecosystems.